operating rule as a recording in progress. It's designed to have
recording in progress.
That's where we're at.
Under our operating rules, it's a work session, and so the city council is unable to take any action except a motion to direct staff to bring items to the council in later meetings. I assume that the Board of Supervisors works about the same way. The agenda did not call for any action items, and also did not call for public comment on any item on the agenda. The public will, of course, have time to comment at any future meetings of either the Board of Supervisors or the City Council if this meeting results in any items from before that are listed on the agenda. I don't think we need to call for a motion to approve the agenda, but I will say that after I made the invitation to the Board of Supervisors to have a joint meeting, we did invite the supervisors to add anything to the then three-part agenda, and the fourth item was added by the Board of Supervisors. So let's open the discussion among the folks sitting up with, at the main table here with the supervisors and the city councilors. The first one is the use of ARPA funds with both the council and the Board of Supervisors. I guess we each have some staff here available to help direct the meeting in terms of what things to address under each topic area. Would anybody like to start on this item on the agenda? If not, we do have a handout that has been placed at the desks here. It does at least give a profile of the city of Marshalltown use of funds up to this point in time. And that includes a general fund revenue replacement of $518,724, Edgewood Stormwater project of $850,000, the new State Street water and sewer improvement as part of the downtown improvement plan after the tornado, and the impact program of $400,000. So we have allocated, the city have allocated $3,768,724 of those funds, with a total award of $3,980,465, and that leaves an unallocated amount of $211,741. On the right hand of the handout, you'll see other potential uses that have been under consideration, including the lead hazard remediation, the neighborhood beautification program, the affordable housing project support, and the LMI housing program. With that as a preface, does anybody have any points they'd like to make about this topic?
Is that your allocation for just the first year or for both years allocation from the federal government?
It is 2 years plus a small amount of, I think, 6,600 that was distributed to cities that was not claimed by some cities. Okay. So it is the total for everything.
We also have, Nan, if you want to go over our what we've allocated our money to, I'll give a brief overview ahead of time. What we've attempted to do is look at things that are capital improvements on our buildings and grounds and all of our different facilities that would come out of our general basic portion of our budget. So in doing so, we've strived to be able to reduce the burden on the property taxpayers in future years by taking these one-time funds and applying them towards these capital projects, not only at the courthouse, but the annex, the election center, and specifically and very mostly to our county jail facilities. We have allocated everything with the exception of a very small amount that we are still waiting on to see if we're going to get some additional grants. that being said, I think if we would have had all of the rules that continually change on this ahead of time, we probably may have allocated some of it different. And but our funds are pretty much totally allocated for both years at this time. Want to give them an overview, please?
Yes, so our first payment came in June 1st of 21. So our next one is going to be coming here just in a couple months. Our total award is just over $7.6 million. We have 7.329 completely committed at this point. There are some estimates, of course, in those numbers. The balance of 262,000 are three items that are currently tabled on our agenda as waiting, as Supervisor Thompson said, waiting kind of to see if there's some grant and other funding and getting some additional information from the legislature. Because of the tornado, we've used a lot of this for technology type things also in the courthouse and various buildings to do what we're doing right here, having the OWL and be able to do remote meetings. So that was kind of our COVID beginning thoughts on this process. Glass and in all of our buildings that we're redoing in the courthouse and the annex for COVID protection. So we kind of started out under that premise, as well as HVAC in those locations, which was under the original preliminary guidelines allowed. It is too bad they changed all the rules on us all, but kind of is what it is. It's all things that we were going to spend anyway that way. The sheriff's office was kind of our addition with being able to a new control board there for controlling the locking of the cells, new HVAC and air filtration there at the sheriff's office, as well as new windows. The windows in the admin part of the building are original. So I think we can see a good cost savings there as well on utilities. We've also got a lot of radios, the county radios for the new radio system, secondary roads, as well as I'm going to call it the Burg of Green Mountain because it's not officially a city. And so they kind of had different rules. They couldn't ask for funding there. So they're currently the only other location that we did radios for because they really couldn't go after that city funding. So they got just under 30,000. We're still kind of waiting on a couple townships for additional information, but we funded Green Mountain at 50%. We didn't do 100. Just kind of tried to be, have them still have some responsibility and ownership. There was some annex or some election items that were purchased when you all go vote in June or November. These freedom votes are the new assisted machines that they're basically like a tablet. We've had many folks we tried to encourage, if you're visually impaired at all, very easily to see. I don't even have to wear my glasses and I can read it. So really a nice new technology. And that's something else we purchased because you can also use a stylus on that. So anything else you want me to add?
I think you pretty much nailed it. We're in good shape there.
Conservation probably is another thing to talk about. Of course, you all probably read the paper that his bids came in higher. So he's kind of right now working on the Destination Iowa funding, trying to help supplement the ARPA funding for being able to get the campground and shower house at Greencastle. Timmons Shower House as well. He got a partial grant. He's anticipating that coming in high as well, just from what happened on this other one. So he went back to CGA today, as a matter of fact, to get more information. And he's going to go after some money there with Destination Iowa to try to supplement this.
We basically had 3 quality of life initiatives we wanted to hit. We wanted to increase the camping and shower facilities at our Greencastle down in Ferguson facility. We wanted to upgrade the shower facilities at Timmins Grove. These are both highly utilized places for localized camping. And we've also allocated some funds for the Sand Lake additional acquisition of property around that. I truly believe that once we acquire the remainder of the property around Sand Lake, that will be even a higher crown jewel in our quality of life issues than the Grimes Farm. And that's really going to be a stretch to get to that. It's proximity to Marshalltown, and it's the single largest usage of anything we have where people are taking advantage of recreational facilities is Sand Lake. Absolutely astounding.
So am I hearing the three of you and Nan correctly that what you don't have allocated is probably going to go to the conservation and these parks and things?
What we don't have allocated at this time, we've got sitting, and we're waiting to see if that's about $211,000.
Yeah.
That is for a mental health court, similar to our drug court. And we think that the state is going to be able to fund that. Originally, we had some funding in there for a drug court, and the state came through with a grant through Second Judicial for about $5.2 million. So they funded that for a 3-year period of time. I think the state is also going to come through with some economic or some funding for mental health court. And if that's the case, we're probably going to apply those funds toward a resurfacing project down at Wolf Lake.
Well, the reason I ask is through our joint venture with the police department and YSS, we're starting to find out there's a bigger homeless problem in the city than we first thought. And I was wondering if you guys, the county, has documented or have any knowledge of homelessness within the county outside the city.
I think David Hicks through YSS, when they did the homeless counts, did the entire county. I know we had several volunteers that went out. I don't have the breakdown as to what portion of the homeless population was within the incorporated city limits of all our different towns within the county and what might be rural. I think we just got a total homeless population.
Do you know what that, Dan, do you know what that is?
I do not, no, sorry.
I saw you pull some notes out. I thought maybe you had.
No, I'm gonna take a note so I can.
Would that, I mean, it sounds like all your ARPA funds are gonna be allocated.
They're committed.
Yes. So that's not something we could do on a joint thing moving forward then.
At this time, not that I would anticipate.
Unless we got other funding that would underwrite the whole thing.
Mhm.
And you never know, that may come out.
Okay.
There's been considerable changes with the state funding mental health this year. They did take on the funding of the mental health, but at the same time, what affected both the city's budget and the county's budget is what the state giveth, the state taketh away. They've backed off on their commercial property tax backfill to both the city and the county. So even though they have allocated money towards mental health, they've backed off on that same funding for the commercial property tax credit, but it still has to be extended.
Anyone else want to bet way in from either entity? I know on the mental health things that Senator Edwards been kind of the one carrying the torch on that down at the legislature. He's been very involved in it. And I think was the main author of one of the bills that got passed on.
Absolutely, he's been phenomenal.
Anyone else? With Wayne, or should we go on to the next one about the Grimes Farm? Well, let's go to the Grimes Farm, and that one was the county's suggestion that we add that to the agenda. So what we somebody from the county address that one.
We can what it is the gravel road from Highland Acres Road on up to the Grimes Farm seems to hold back usage of that facility somewhat. And I mean, I've grown up and lived on a gravel road all my life, and so I don't have that thought process. But there's a lot of people who say, "Boy, I'm not going to drive my car or my pickup on that gravel road." And if we could get that hardtop we would probably see even a bigger usage of that educationally, recreationally, and it's a good facility. I think we need to put that on a billboard sort of, and let people know about that a little bit more. There's a just short of mile or thereabouts, and that would include hard topping the gravel road from Highland Acres Road up to that. Also hard topping the parking lot, and then going around to the back where trucks deliver things and where the staff park. It would be the time to also hard top that. When we looked at it a couple of years ago, we came up with about what, $800,000.
It's real close, about 865.
I have a new quote from.
And it went down.
Yeah, doesn't everything go down?
Okay, jump in here now.
Paul gave us one. It was one of the ARPA things that was suggested up front, 1.2, but that was kind of before the last 2 or 3 months. It seems like everything is just went crazy. So I don't know if that's even a good quote anymore, but it just shows just from what a couple years being in here, just under 900, already up 300,000. And
I wonder if this would be more palatable if it was broken into maybe 2 or 3 projects. Maybe the road, paving the road up to the parking area might be one part of this project. And then the parking area then it might be another.
be a separate.
And to be honest, I don't know why the city would want to pave our building in the back there where the employees are.
But if
Just my thought.
If we can get the road, that would.
Just for a little history on this, this is something that Mayor Greer and I worked on about 4 years ago. And we thought we had an agreement where the city would do 1/3, the county would do 1/3, and 1/3 with another benevolent organization. That fell by the wayside because that organization came to the conclusion that they did not work with government entities. There's been some things that I believe that may have changed with that organization in the past couple of years. Take, for example, the city worked with the school system and the Martha Ellen High Trust for the tennis courts. And we'd like to propose the same type of thing happen on this. Get the city involved in this, get the Thai Trust involved in this, get the county and trust involved in this, and possibly even the school system. The school uses the facility quite extensively to bring children out for field trips. I know the bicyclists use it extensively, and I think it would be an even more use if this was paved, because we do get a lot of complaints about the dust control, even though we put it down. It is a very heavily used recreational facility and quality of life issue. I'd sure like to place it on the table where we work together and try and find a solution where we can all have a part of this.
You say Sand Lake is your #1 user for
At
usage.
this time, yes.
So where is Grimes Farm behind Sand Lake?
Very, very close.
So paving it would put it over the top and open up some other opportunities.
Absolutely. I think the reason why Sand Lake gets it is it gets more usage 365 days a year. You've got ice fishing out there plus standard fishing. It's right next to town. The amount of people that go out and use Sand Lake as a recreational facility is just unbelievable.
And it's a no-wake lake, right?
It is a no-wake lake, yeah. You can go on there with a boat and an electric motor, but that's it. There can be no gas motors.
If we're going to talk about history with the Grimes Farm, let me share a few things. One, Kerry Grimes Farm called me about 20 some years ago and asked if I would be on a committee to try to raise the funds to build the conservation center out there. She also called Wayne Sawtell and asked him to be on the committee. Unbeknownst to both Wayne and me, she intended us to be the co-chairs of it, and we were good sports about it, and we're the co-chairs of it. So he and I went to the Vision Iowa meetings with the board down there that had several $1 million to go out in grants for things like that back that number of years ago. I think it was 1985, actually. And so we went, Michael Gardner chaired that. We went to Dubuque, we went to meetings in Des Moines, other meetings around the state, and got the funds to put it in there. One of the first things that happened after that building was built was a dispute about whether to pave or not pave the parking lot. And I understand the Grimes family did not want to pave it then. And so when everything was built, it was not paved. In recent years, in the last 10 years, to the extent that Mr. Thompson and I have had any, David Thompson and I have had any conversations about it, I have never had any agreement for the city or for the Thai Foundation when I served on the Thai Foundation that this was an idea that was going to work or that I was working towards. So I didn't ever suggest any agreement that on behalf of the city, where I was just a city councilor, I believe, in the way of that conversation, or the Thai Foundation when I was the treasurer or secretary of that foundation. So I will acknowledge that I got a call from David Thompson asking if the city would do a third and the Thai Foundation would do a third, and said I did not know, and I've never worked toward having that agreement. Frankly, I personally think it's a project that is city property, I'm sorry, is county property, and that to the extent that the city gets use out of it, the city has its own streets and roads and sidewalks to take care of. In terms of the arrangement that we had with the Marshtown School District and the city and school district already had an arrangement for tennis courts when there was property near the school, and then also on 13th Street, we were working on a project to exchange land out by Bicentennial Park with the school district, and that was a joint project in the city of Marshalltown that made sure that we had dedicated courts, including pickleball courts that would be open to the public. So that was really something different. But anyway, I needed to set the record straight that I never ever agreed on behalf of the city or the Thai Foundation to have anything.
We did work behind the scenes to try and get an agreement, Joel.
You did call me and ask me, and I never had an agreement with you to do that.
Oh, we didn't have an agreement. We had discussions.
It was discussed. But you represented that we had an agreement that just never went through. You and I never.
Well, it sure would be nice if we could get something together and get it done.
Jeff, you're on Trails Inc., right?
Wow.
And so is that used as a trailhead by bike riders? Are you guys tracking that where they're getting on the trailhead, driving in?
No, we don't have any numbers
okay
about that at all. I'm glad the topic is being discussed. I do think it is a good asset for the county and the city. You know, I think I could maybe get on board with the city doing some percentage of it, but it is all on county property. I mean, I don't know that the city should be paying for the parking lot. That's for sure. But since it is pretty much a connector directly with the city, I think that I could support some percentage of funding from the city.
Well, maybe it's something we can work out. It all starts with a single step. That's right. Let's see if we can get down this road together.
Nan, can you get a new quote?
Yeah, on that, I was just going to ask, given you have reached out for formal quotes, where is that in your capital improvement plan? Is that 2 years out? Is that 4 years out? I mean, just help us level set on the timing.
I don't think it's part of Paul's 5-year plan,
No.
but we haven't went through all of his budget items with the DOT because the budget system was down. So we'll be probably a little more educated tomorrow after that meeting.
We have numerous projects that are going to be with state roads and attaching to them. We like to work on that. If the state is going to do something, we kind of tag onto it and do what's called our runouts. Keeps all of our equipment off the highways. We do have some other paving projects that will be being done we'll be having a meeting tomorrow morning at 8:45 and going over our 5-year plan. The plan that will be presented tomorrow is what we propose. If we don't put things into that plan, we cannot put them out. So we have to start there with the state and say, these are the things we're thinking about. So it doesn't necessarily mean that those things are going to be accomplished within the 5-year plan, but they're definitely on.
Well, we have to assume you guys have a similar list like we do of what the biggest bang for the buck type thing.
Exactly.
When it comes to roads,
yeah,
bridges,
the list never ends. Bridges are one of those weird things. We could put an inordinate amount of funding towards it. The real problem that presents itself is we could literally come up with $20 million. There's not enough contractors within the state of Iowa to do the bridges.
Have you put any out for bid?
Oh, we do constantly.
And you don't get any bidders?
Well, you typically, your bridge builders are PCI, are the ones that have the most. There's really only 2 companies that will do the bridges that we require, and they have to be built to state standards. It's one of those things where there's more need than there are contractors and their ability to do the job. That's what really limits it.
That's why I was just curious if you put some out for bid.
Absolutely.
The state actually is the one that puts the bids out, and then we follow through. But the state does the specs, and then they also do the bids.
Something that we have done these past few years is we've expanded our equipment offering in our secondary roads department so that we've got the talent in the individuals and the equipment to do all the prep work. And we've been, rather than doing bridges, we've been replacing them with box culverts when the hydrology allows us to do it. We can literally do 3 sets of box culverts for the cost of 1 bridge. So we've been stretching our bang for our buck big time. We do everything but having the crane come in and be able to physically set the box culverts. There's no way we can have a crane with that lifting capacity, so we use Dave's crane out of Union.
So getting back to this road to Grimes Farm, so following up with what Barry said, if you guys don't put it in your 5-year plan, then how would you fund this outside of your 5-year plan? So why are we even having the discussion if we don't even know if it's going to be in your 5-year plan?
This we would put in the 5-year plan, and we would also try and come up with some other funding mechanism for it.
So if we in future meetings can figure out a joint venture, you guys could fund your 95% of it.
We can probably figure out a way to fund a portion of it, yes.
So 50%. I came down from 95. You gotta give me that.
Oh, you're making progress.
Biggest pill I'm trying to swallow is the priorities we have in town from a road reconstruction, complete rebuild, and everything.
And ours
else, right?
also.
That's just not an insignificant amount of that. Just trying to knock off a small portion of that. So
it's a real hard sell. I mean, none of us can come up with enough dollars for our secondary roads or for the infrastructure within town. But if there's one thing that we get the most comments from and requests are from the individuals that live in Marshalltown for us to pave that road because they just don't like going on a gravel road.
I also have received some comments about that road and people wanting that as a nice place to start if they take the bike paths out of Marshalltown towards Melbourne. But if we're talking about putting hard top, it might be a good time to also discuss if the city were to come to the table to meet somewhere on a partnership like this. It'd be nice if the county would pave out some of those places along the trail towards Melbourne where you have to go from the hard top on your bicycle across the gravel to another hard top.
We actually had that done through Region 6, and the state backed off on the funding of it. Was one of the things that for the places where the bike trail from Grimes Farm all the way to Melbourne crossed our secondary road system that were gravel, we were going to pave 100 feet both sides of that and go all the way to the intersection. And the funding for that just fell apart. I can't remember who the grant came through, if it was the state or the federal government, but that was something we worked through on Region 6 with Marty Weinor.
It's been a few years ago.
Yep.
That was while it was still on the board of directors of the Trails Inc., but that had to be good 5 years ago by now.
I can't remember the exact reason it fell apart, but that was from, I believe it was state funding. And those dollars come from the, what's called the TAP program, Transportation Alternative Program from the federal government.
It is one that if you have two bikes, you don't take the thin wheeled bike out there. You take the fat wheeled bike to get on the gravel.
The Grimes Farm Road does not qualify for farm to market dollars, does it?
No, there's no way we could get that to qualify for farm to market. We're also limited to a certain amount of miles of roads that we can have in our farm to market system. So let's hypothetically say it did qualify for farm to market, we would have to take some other miles out of our farm to market roads and apply it towards that for a period of time, but it doesn't meet farm to market requirements.
Is that 1.2 million inclusive of the parking lot and the back half stretch to the?
I
Or is that
believe
just-
so. I think Paul, when Paul Geilenfeld
Did
gave us that number.
Would it be possible to break out those bids?
Paul was estimating. That's our county engineer. So, but yeah, he could sure make a split of that and get that information. So I will make a note of
I
doing
think
that.
total dollar wise, if this thing came to fruition, it would be good to do the whole thing. Because once you get a crew with all their stuff pulling in there to do that, it's going to be cheaper for us to do the whole thing at
Right.
once.
But split the
quote. Cost, but do it all at once.
I'm just of the opinion that I could be. I'm at the table to discuss what that road looks like, the expense of the access for employees in the parking lot. I don't think our Washington constituents would want us doing that.
I guess what I look at is what our bonding looks like going forward for half of it, and what the impact in the city of Marshalltown will be on our streets, because we're behind on our streets. And trying to put something new out there and then leave something in town that really needs to be done. We put an extra $1 million in our streets this year. And I think we could be doing that again next year. So depend on what kind of impact it would have at that. Unfortunately, and if we're talking 3-4 years out,
yeah.
$1 million doesn't go very far anymore when you're doing street projects.
So couldn't we just annex that whole area and build high-end houses out there?
We could.
After they pave.
Yeah. So, but that's the only question that I have. Because we are behind on our streets, that we need every dollar we can put into it. If we're talking 3-4 years out, maybe we can put together something.
It's never too early to start the talk.
Right.
Yeah. But I fully understand what you're saying about, streets is a constant thing. You can do a street a few years later, for some reason, it's going bad. And that's just the way it is. So I fully understand.
Have there been any further talks with Martha Allen Type Foundation or not? I'm sorry.
Not at this time.
Okay.
Or no other talks at the school either, you said.
Not at
So
this time.
okay. So this is the first.
This was our first
reaction.
First chat.
May I ask a clarifying question? The Destination Iowa funding, the 100 million that's coming out, is that something the city cities, counties?
Yeah, anybody can apply, but it's been encouraged that there's just one application per community, and there are multiple projects sort of under
entities, yeah.
consideration right now.
Just reading a little bit of it that sound like some of this and the paving of the gravel, that kind of would maybe be a little something that would fall underneath one of the categories it has, so.
Well, it would be nice if we could co-apply for that. You know, the city was very cooperative with us when we applied for the grant and got the $1 million funding for the Center Street Bridge projects. That allowed us to do 4 bridges. Not one dime of it wound up on the backs of the property taxpayers. We just gave you a letter of support for your 3rd Avenue corridor, and hopefully you get that grant and that works together. So there's been a long history of the city and the county working back and forth with trying to get these grants. This might be another opportunity for us to do that again.
So what is the next step moving forward for you guys? Find out a real, not a real, but a more current number from Paul, and then
If we could get it in our 5-year program, put it in the 5-year program. And
when you say put it in your 5-year program, excuse me for interrupting, but give me a ballpark, like Gabe was talking. Are you 4 years out, 5 years out? I mean,
we would try and find if we thought this thing was going to work, we'd set it in there at 4 years. We'd set it in there at 5 years.
so we have plenty of time to bring in other other stakeholders, to use everybody else's word.
Yeah. That just gives an opportunity for us to know it's there and create a plan that'll work.
But that's the real first step, since it's in the county, is for you guys to get it in there.
We have to put it in our 5-year plan.
Okay. Well, then that gives you the time also to be watching for grants that pop up.
Exactly. And I think a good one is the one that the city administrator just mentioned, and man, what was the name of that one again?
It's the destination.
Destination.
Is there any land on Grimes Farm that could be utilized for something else, to bring in a different player that would utilize Grimes Farm for, and I don't want to say the OHV, no, that would not be good out there, but I mean, is there some other organization besides the bike trail going out there? Is there anything that, I haven't been out there and walked the whole ground. Is there land that could be opened up to other organizations? I mean, there's no hunting out there, right?
No, currently you have the walking trails. You've got the facilities that can be used for, you know, we've got a beautiful amphitheater that is used
in the tower, the building itself.
The tower, the building itself, plus the proximity to the bike path.
Right.
The biggest new asset is last year was the completion of the amphitheater, and this year is going to be additional stuff for the children's playground.
And on the amphitheater, well, is Mike tracking where the people are coming from when they come in the building, or come out to you guys have the concerts every week in the summer, right?
That's put on by, I believe, the Friends of the Conservation.
Are they coming from the city, or are they coming from outside the city?
It's probably heavily used mostly by city individuals. They've got a pretty good lineup. They've got the blues band coming this year.
So there's 2 from outside.
Okay. I know there's at least 4 different venues that they will have on different evenings this summer. It's fairly heavily used.
Okay. If you get remarried now, you and your wife, you could do it out there.
You know, we did those vows in '76, and they've stuck since then. So I think we'll stick with it. We did it right the first time.
It was a wonderful setting when Mildred Grimes died, and eulogy out there.
Okay.
And the playscapes are really nice. Yeah, I think it was the young professionals group that got together, or the Iowa Valley Community College leadership class that the last hour of. That was nice. It was good news. We go out there every weekend if we're in town when the weather permits. It was pretty cold on Sunday.
We didn't really come here tonight to try to get everyone to come to one point of view. Let's get it out, think about it, and we'll also do the same. And look at perhaps a partnership down the road here to ways. That makes sense to you?
I think it's an excellent idea.
Very good. Anybody else like to speak about this before we go on to the next item? Okay, well, I don't think we're done talking about improvements of streets and things like that. The third item is the downtown implementation plan overview. There's a handout for that. The people most conversant on this one from the city's standpoint or city administrator or city engineer and community development person. So, over to
Yes, so I did get this in everybody's packets just so that you have it when I went through the slideshow here. So the downtown implementation plan, just to give you a little bit of history. So post-tornado came the downtown master plan, which was half funded by the Martha L. Foundation and half funded by the U.S. Economic Development Administration, and really gave us that vision of what downtown could be, and has been something that we have really been pushing out as this is our vision, this is what we want. But what it sort of lacked was, how do we get there? Especially when you look around and you see the streets and the sidewalks are in bad condition. You know, how do you get to that vision of a safe, walkable downtown, where you have some things that are very visible, as well as the things that are not so visible, of how do you get people to invest in their properties when we have 100-plus-year-old water mains throughout the downtown area, as well as like on State Street, only 2 storm water inlets currently, and just a older sanitary sewer infrastructure as well. So that's where we really got into getting together with sort of the downtown implementation plan, which was put together by Bolton and Mink, which was really giving us that roadmap and that more detailed plan of how we're going to move forward. And so this is, I hope it's visible from the handout as well, because it's something that I think is truly our roadmap of where we're going and kind of where we're at right now. And so phase 1A is State Street, phase 1A and 1B are State Street. And so this is that image that's been put together for how we are going to be making some improvements. Of course, what you don't see is brand new water mains, brand new storm sewer, brand new sanitary sewer, which is, I think, about 40% of the project. So, 40% we just don't get to see. But this is, I'm told it's going to be on our agenda for April 25th to order construction with a public hearing on May 9th and then awarding a bid at the May 23rd council meeting. So we are very, very close to getting some final bids on this. And we're also, I would say, very, very nervous to see what those bids look like as well. And so this really is, this is not a one-year project. It's hopefully a 2-year project. Although I did see that we might be adding in some ability to go into 2024 just to accommodate kind of the environment that we're in right now. But this is really the first step in moving forward. So to kind of give you an idea of how things would happen, though everything's dependent upon a contractor and timing, project work would start at the east end from 3rd Avenue, working towards Center Street, with a separate project of being 3rd Street for some stormwater improvements, and then basically building back from 3rd Street towards Center Street. And what you see there is what we are looking at, moving the bike paths that are divided off of Main Street into a sidewalk level cycle track that would be on the north side of the street, moving parking, just parallel parking to the south side only, and then having your 2-way traffic through there as well. So you'll also notice street trees. I know Councilmember Hoop recalls the days when the trees were cut down, but trees are something we want back in our community. So we are implementing, I think, 43 street trees along that 3rd Street to 3rd Avenue corridor, along with some plantings that will be kind of very minimal in nature, more grass than anything else. So that's what we're going towards, and hopefully you will see that we'll be able to show that very image in reality towards the end of 2023 on this one. So I wanted to get more in depth of, that one's easy to talk about because we're so close to having it bid out. It's pretty much, it's pretty well designed at this point. But there are future phases, including the next one, which are going to impact the county's properties. And so we wanted to just give you kind of a brief overview of kind of what those look like, and then talk about where things go next. So you can see this is some imagery that's been produced from standing at the corner of Center Street and Main Street and looking off to the east. Probably the biggest thing you notice in that picture, which is phase 2, East Main Street from Center Street to 3rd Street, as well as then, or 3rd Avenue, as well as then Center Street from State Street down to Church Street. You notice that there is some diagonal parking on the south side. And so that is kind of the big change that people will see on Main Street with both phases, is that there would be diagonal parking on the south side, and then keeping the parallel parking on the north side as well. So ultimately, you know, again, 2020 costs, so probably off at this point, looking at $6 million. We'd love to start planning this in 2023, knowing that this is going to be a much larger planning and design effort because of the number of properties and property owners who need to be involved in this. With then hopefully construction shortly thereafter. All depends upon our debt capacity and council priority for where this fits in. The other 2 phases that really have an impact are phase 4, which is Church Street, and this does have a larger boundary from just 3rd Street to 3rd Avenue. But the biggest thing with 3rd Street that you would see is the conversion of traffic from two-way, or from one-way to two-way. And so that is a conversation that still has to happen within the community. But I wanted to pull this image out because I thought this was definitely pertinent. You know, we have that bus stop that sits on the south side of the courthouse, and it's not necessarily in the most convenient place and for moving the bus around. So if we go to a configuration where you have the two-way traffic, we're proposing that rather than there being any sort of parking diagonal or parallel on that courthouse side, because you do have the little loop parking lot, that we would actually have that bus stop extend out. So it's like a platform, essentially a concrete platform where the shelter would continue to be, and make it easier for individuals to access the buses from that location. And so this is again just a concept, but one that played up really well with our transit staff in terms of just getting people on and off the bus at that location. The cost estimate for phase 4, which is again, it's more than just what you're seeing here, is 5.7 million, which is probably much higher than that at this point too. And then finally, phase 6 has kind of blocks of streets here and there. 1st Avenue is the major impact to the courthouse specifically, as well as your engineering building and the annex, because you do have quite a few that actually do sit there on that 1st Avenue side of things. And so looking at that being a $2.6 million phase, the way that it was kind of ballparked to us initially is that just about any block in a downtown setting where you're doing utility replacement is going to be about $1 million a block. I don't know what the inflationary number is on that, but that's what it was at the time when we were putting the plan together. And so we are still, State Street's moving forward, but the other phases are not in that planning phase yet. And so we thought this would be a great opportunity to just bring to your attention what the downtown implementation plan looks like, and to just bring to your attention the ability to have the county have some input on some of those things. One of the things that, we've kind of been communicating with other property owners is that each of these phases will replace sidewalks in the area. It's going to do a complete reconstruction. And so it might just be that maybe you have a few panels of sidewalk that need to be replaced in a certain area. And we're thinking about the whole thing, but if you can just replace those few panels, we're probably, at least on the East Main Street side of things, just a few years off from being able to do something more. And so how can we work together to make sure that we're getting the best uses of our limited resources, as well as creating an environment in downtown that works to serve as a place of business for the county and many of your facilities, as well as a destination and attraction for the community as well. So that's kind of all that I have. Obviously, communication is one of those things that when we know more about what's happening and when, that's certainly when there would be a heavy amount of communication coming forward. There's just so much we don't know now about State Street or other phases. to communicate, but we are open to your input in some of these future phases and how those might impact your properties.
And Jessica, as far as parking for them, we talked about angle parking on Center Street side also, right?
Yes,
So 3 sides of the courthouse would have, you actually gain parking around 3 sides of the courthouse.
and I couldn't find it immediately, Councilmember Thompson, but I believe that we were actually proposing there'd be angled parking on all sides of the courthouse.
Yeah,
If you can kind of see in one of these photos, or off to the right there, that there's an angled spot
There's
there.
not many on that back side.
Yeah, not too many on that side due to the.
But all the other
transit.
3 sides, you'll gain parking spots. Thank you.
We'll specifically want to keep in very close touch on what your plans are for sidewalks. Right now, with the reconstruction of the courthouse and all the heavy equipment that has gone across the sidewalk, plus we literally had to build a road in with gravel in the courthouse yard to be able to put the heavy lifting cranes and things on. That's all going to have to be removed, and much of the sidewalks are going to have to be replaced. They just took a tremendous beating, and you know, it is what it is. But
They were old to begin with.
they weren't. Well, a lot of it was new, you know, and where we had the one area, but there's going to be a tremendous amount of concrete sidewalk work we're going to have to do. So
that's a good point. Did the plan, do you remember what Bolton and Meg said about the measurements? Are we still going in as far as the existing sidewalks are?
That is a good question. I don't recall exactly what that design standard was on the south side.
That's something we need to communicate with them.
My gut feeling is it was gonna stay the same because we were not planning on moving the street lights.
okay.
One other thing we should probably mention, and I think most of the city has heard about it, but that the north doors will not be open on Main Street for security reasons. Kind of sad, we won't be able to run across the street to grab something to eat, but
Cold days.
yeah.
It'll still be an exit, but we are going to one secure location for entry on the south side.
South side.
We worked with the sheriff in this last budget. We added 2 additional jail staff to reduce the burden on issues out there, and 1 additional patrol full-time division. By reducing the amount of money that was put in on overtime, we literally added 3 staff individuals with a wash as far as what the taxpayer's burden is going to be. But it'll be a tremendous amount of savings for overtime that should lead to a lot of less burnout for both our jail staff and our patrol staff, and allow the sheriff to operate his schedule much more efficiently.
Jessica, could we go back to with phase 4, for what you want to do in the back on the south side of the courthouse? Are those 2 buses that are end to end there? Is that what we're looking at?
That's what we're looking
Okay.
at. Yep.
All right. And what is the brown? What is the dark?
Yeah, so we're looking at how do you bring some color back to downtown. Everything's pretty much concrete, so it's looking at how do you incorporate some colored concrete in an aesthetic way that kind of spruces up the area. So we do have that will be happening on State Street. So we will have some examples of what that will look like, knowing that whatever the design that we've kind of got selected for State Street will be something we'll want to look at on throughout other parts of downtown. The other thing that we're doing is we are going to have some kind of like patches of pavers, interlocking pavers as well, to just kind of give it a little bit more of a you're in a pleasant place and it's safe to walk, and just to break up a lot of that just solid concrete.
Not too dissimilar from what's happening behind the Tremont parking lot.
Correct. Yeah, that's all interlocking pavers, and yep, that's a nice project. I don't think we're doing anything stormwater specific though on State Street with our pavers.
And is this phase 6 that we're looking at here then? Is that the picture of phase 6?
This
Or
is the
part
phase-
of phase 6?
This is phase 4, so I didn't have
Phase 4.
I didn't have any sort of rendering or anything from phase 6. So, but I think it was just a simple, like, complete reconstruction with replacement of utilities. I don't think there was anything very special that we were looking at on First Avenue, and there's already the diagonal parking there, so it's probably just repainting, reconfiguring that on new pavement to fit whatever suits the needs of the county, because I think that's where there's quite a few reserved spots currently, so.
So when you do phase 2, both on Center Street, bordering the courthouse, and on Main Street, you're talking about shutting the entire streets down for a period of time?
I would say that, and I'm pretty sure that our public works director, city engineer would like to say this, is we are doing the best that we can to shut down limited blocks. For example, on State Street, we don't want anybody to open up something and then figure out they can't get the pipe that they need for 6 months. And so there's going to be a very tight control around sort of access and being in line with when things are going to be available. I hope we're in a better supply environment when we get to Main Street, but it's going to be tricky in terms of how we do it. But I would envision that we'll be doing kind of block by block closures and completing work as we go. It's really related to, like, and this has to do with State Street too, stormwater, and making sure that you start at the highest point. Start at the lowest point and then build your way back to the highest point. So, so that's what that's kind of how that fits into the design when we're having to replace stormwater, and in some cases add stormwater.
We just want to be cognizant the people on this street haven't been back in there very long after the tornado, and because it's going to hurt their business.
It will definitely hurt business. If you can't get to a front door and you can't park out front, we recognize that there are plenty of people who will probably just stay away. So that is where Main Street, whether it's East Main or West Main, becomes a lot more of a delicate situation. We'll have some experiences on State Street to kind of draw off of. And hopefully figure out any lessons we need to learn on that one. But Main Street certainly is going to be that much more difficult. But again, we're hopeful that the incentives of having the sidewalks replaced and that not being a property owner cost, as well as then, you know, building out some water infrastructure, which will hopefully be able to lead to sprinkling in upper stories in the future, will be some of those carrots of, we just have to get through it in order to see the light at the end of the tunnel. I
understand. It's just one of those things, but we have to keep those people in mind somehow.
We will be gaining some parking spots not too distant from now on some of these other buildings are coming down. We've got the bids and the contractors lined up to take some of the buildings down that we've had to cordon off the parking space. So if you want to stop and get Ocean City right now, you've only got one side of the block to park. So those should open up. We've tried 2 cases in Macocata in the last 7 months. They had their whole Main Street torn up. It goes right by the courthouse. On Wednesday of that trial, we didn't have court in the morning because somebody cut a line and raw sewage was being dumped into the basement of the courthouse. We'll try to avoid that sort of thing here, but those sorts of things do happen. When I was back there 2 weeks ago, the road was done, everything was nice, but that courthouse, Eldora's courthouse, other courthouses are also going to a 1-point access for St. James.
And that's why we live in. That's why we changed some of the rooms in the courthouse too, so that the one department used probably the most would be the treasurer's department, where you stop and get your licenses and license plates rather and stuff. And so that's going to be just right inside that south door. So people who have wheelchairs or walkers or just having a hard time, they can walk straight in the door and there's their office. And if we didn't do it that way and we brought them in from the north, there would be steps, there would be elevators, and so that's the thought behind why we did it this way.
Anybody else have input about this agenda item?
I just want to, so will Heather take the lead with the supervisors of the county staff then on when we get to that point?
Yeah, I would say what we've done with State Street was we had bi-weekly design meetings when we were there, and then we wanted stakeholders involved. So yeah, so that's when we'll probably have those conversations. But the point of tonight is, again, as you're looking at a capital improvement plan as well, what are things where you have projects maybe planned in the area where does it make sense to hold off and fit them in with our project, or does it make sense that you move forward with them? So just keeping this out there for your awareness as a planning tool, not quite knowing exactly when we'll start the design process for East Main Street.
Okay. Heather, if you would, please keep in contact with Lucas Pansky, our buildings and grounds. I know you guys know each other and are in contact quite a bit, as you are with Quag Island, Falta County engineer. Good relations with both of you, and good communications, and just work it out between you. If you could, please.
Nobody else wants to address number 3. Let's go on to number 4 then. That's the request for fire property in the vicinity of 901 East. I know we have large colored photo handouts and small ones. That's the one.
You guys got large printouts over there? Okay.
Yeah.
Here.
Are you saying I'm blind?
Well, you won't have to look through the bottom portion of glasses. What we're proposing is if you're going to divest yourself of some of this as excess property later on, that we be given the opportunity to buy it. We need to replace our county shops, our maintenance facilities on the data. Literally, the equipment has gotten so big, and some of these buildings are at the stage in their life where we almost cannot get the equipment inside the building. They need to totally be replaced. If we're going to do that, we'd sure like to pick up any additional neighboring land that we could to be able to work that into the situation. It's kind of one of the last pieces of the puzzle in our capital improvement plan. We will have completely reworked our facilities out to the jail. We've redone the annex. We've redone the election center. We've redone the courthouse. And this is kind of one of our last pieces of the puzzle that we'd like to accomplish in the next very close future, 4 to 5 years out, if not sooner. And this is a good starting point. So I know the county engineer has been in contact with the city engineer, and I guess at that point,
turn it over to me.
What do you got to say?
Sounds good. County engineer Guy Phillip reached out to me and proposed 2 locations in this area that they may have some interest from the county's perspective in acquiring. Those are those areas in black here. This is around the 901 East Church Street area, and it's directly south of the city's public works facilities as well. So what I did is I went back through our records to see what's in that area. You know, is this ground that we can or can't get by without? And essentially the southern piece in black, there's no issues as far as utilities from a public utility perspective. We do have a couple of issues with the very top one that would limit the size of that area that the city would be open to discussion. The very north portion of that is a drainage area that has a ton of water issues right now through the Marshalltown Company. So we want to be very cognizant not to fill in within that area and that drainage way. Also along the eastern edge of there, we've got kind of a reddish area. We have a 42-inch sanitary sewer that's about 13 feet deep there. So we need to retain an area of that for one maintenance on that sanitary sewer project. Other than that, that road is not a public road. It's kind of a drive, public works drive. But we would want to treat, right of way as if it was a road. So that'd be a 66-foot right of way with 10-foot public utility easements on both sides, so that any utilities in the future would have that ability to run north-south through that area. I also included in here, just for reference and discussion purposes, several other documents. This is a map of our city's infrastructure. So this is storm and sanitary sewer. So just want to make sure as you guys are planning for improvements in this area that you guys are aware there is a sanitary sewer line running diagonal through here that we would have a restriction on buildings directly above that as well. And then I've also included a map of Marshtown Waterworks' facilities in here just for reference. I would ask that you guys would do a one call if there's any other utilities like Hawaiian Energy, Heart of Iowa, CenturyLink, and those kind of things running through city property. We currently would not require them to have an easement if it's through city property, if that'd be something that the county would require. Our surplus property disposal policy requires you guys to provide an easement to the utility lines that are already running through that property. That's that note. And then last, the city does have a policy in place. If you guys have an interest in those pieces of property, and we would recommend following to the city council that policy that we have in place. And then any requirements for stormwater development, permitting, and that kind of stuff, we would refer you just to our ordinance, and I'd be happy to provide information on that and answer questions if there's any questions associated with that.
When you were going through the map, did you kind of figure out how many square feet there might be between those black lines that you drew there?
Yeah, in rough terms, it's about 2 acres.
For both together?
Correct.
Okay, 2 acres altogether, minus we'd have to take off the
yeah, 2 acres was probably with that area for the sanitary sewer and the drainage on the north side removed.
So, well, that removed. Oh, okay. So there's 2 acres basically that's usable. Okay. I've been down there. I've walked through it, looked at it. Had no idea how. That's pretty hard to look at and say, there's an acre there. Yeah. Okay.
So from the city's perspective, you mentioned if the city was interested in offloading some of this surplus property. The city currently has no plans to offload this property to any other entity. So as far as you guys were concerned, somebody else was going to snatch it up, in the next couple of years, that won't happen. But wanted to present at least the findings of what we have in those locations.
Could you show again where you got to your ordinance?
Yep. I can send you the link, Dan. It's on our website.
Well, I'm under the public works, but yeah, if you send me the link, that'd be great. Thank you.
But remember, the council can do anything.
You're saying you give it to us?
Well, since you brought that up, I don't want to sell it to you. I want to rent it to you.
Rent it.
Yeah, because my job is to fight for the taxpayers of Marshalltown. Okay, so they're paying county taxes. Okay, and as far as I know, you guys aren't spending a lot of money in the city limits here to reimburse the taxpayers of Marshalltown that are paying county taxes. Now, we're doing a great job of trying to TIF the whole town to keep that money out of your pocket, but there still is some money slipping through going to you guys, okay? So my proposal is we rent you those 2 parcels for $3 million a year. I think that's fair for what you collect from the city taxpayers. That's a small percentage, and I want that pushed back into the city so we can use it to do some projects.
Great idea.
I think it's a great idea. Because I'm Steve, my job is to protect the taxpayers of Marshalltown.
Yes, it is.
And they're paying county taxes. And your job is to tell me what city people are getting for the county taxes they're paying.
That's a long list. Would you like me to start?
Yeah.
Well,
so you're telling me you don't want to rent the land for $3 million a year?
I don't think so.
Okay. I could go as low as 2.5. I can go to 2.5 with the other 6 if they join in.
I would prefer to follow our policy. That's why we have it. You're not getting $3 million.
I told I go down to 2.5.
But you're not getting 2.5. If we don't have use for this property,
I don't have a problem with selling it to the county under our current policy to what we have. And Jessica might refresh us if she, off the top of her head, what it would cost the county to purchase these properties.
I don't know what it would be. I think the first step would be there'd have to be a survey to determine your acreage and actually create those parcels. That's gonna have a cost. I would assume the county would pay that cost. The one thing I do want to check on, and I just put this in my email to you, was I believe if we're exchanging properties, it can be a zero-sum deal. And so there might be a reason for the county to look at what properties you own. Is there something to exchange that would be of approximate equivalent value as well, so that it is zero cost to everybody? So just an option to throw out there.
You know, we might have a road we'd like to give you.
Leads to the grindstone.
It goes from Highland Acres to the grindstone.
Yes, 233rd Street.
And I don't think we'll take 3 million for it.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit less.
Okay, if you guys want to buy this and still give us the 3 million every year, I'm okay with that.
I appreciate your thought process.
Protecting the taxpayers of Marshtown.
Absolutely.
Fighting for them.
We all do.
We haven't yet asked for any tax, any direction to for any direction to staff about moving forward. This might be an item where that makes sense, that there's a general consensus that this should happen. So the city.
I think what I like is the direction from the staff as far as which of the options for disposal you'd like us to follow. My guess is you guys would like to do fair market value. That's the option in which you don't have to go out for sealed bids. Nobody else can come in and offer a bid on the property. I know Councilor Member Thompson, you mentioned you didn't like using the assessor's value as the establishment of fair market value.
I don't think that's fair market value.
No,
it isn't.
So
I would be comfortable with taxable value, which is about half of fair market. You know, or if we're going to really do fair market, we need to do a study of land. But this one, we're not going to find anything comparable.
Right, I 100% agree. There's no comparable. This in itself, it's in the general industrial zoning area. Yeah. These parcels are relatively small for industrial development. Currently, through the Marshall County assessor site, the property, this large parcel that the city owns, it's very odd-shaped, is about 10.3 acres, and it's an exempt value of $71,000, which comes out to about $6,922 an acre.
That's the assessed value.
The assessed exempt tax value.
Well, I think we should move forward, at least get it. You guys are serious, you need more room. I mean, we should at least get it plotted out.
I think what we need to do to be proper about it is put it, if we're going to make decisions on things, let's go ahead and put it on the next city council agenda, and then we can hash it out. By then, perhaps the staff could get what they needed.
I don't think there's anything that I'm needing right now to move forward unless we're at the stage where they're ready to have a survey to establish final acres that they're looking for.
Put it on.
We can do an agreement for basically these preliminary services to have the county pay for the survey, and if for some reason sale doesn't happen, the city reimburses.
Yeah.
And then I think quite seriously, I mean, if there is property that you have somewhere to potentially exchange 2 acres of property or something of approximate value, that would be something to consider as well. But a survey is going to have to be done regardless. So,
I mean, what you realistically, your alternative, you don't want to move these buildings and go somewhere else, right?
We had talked about that, but one of the things we were also thinking about, if we had a little more room and we put in new buildings and better use the facility that we have, we would move the people from where they are now, our staff and the engineer that's just down across the corner from the courthouse.
Oh,
we would
consolidate.
We would move them down there too, so they would be with the people that they're working with. So we've got a complete plan in mind. We haven't done anything about it. We haven't measured it or anything,
But you want us to move forward with plotting the land for the 2 acres?
that would be my thought. I would like to see that. I don't know what the other guys are.
Well, I would say during our public budget meetings we had during, with the secondary roads and engineer, that was expressed by all 3 of you during those public meetings.
We did discuss that. Obviously tonight, this isn't an agenda or an action item, so we can't deliberate or decide. We can instruct.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it would be appropriate for us to probably instruct our county engineer to pursue this, and we can have it on our next agenda. We do have a meeting coming up tomorrow, which is to do our budget with the DOT. It can't be added to that, but it could go on our next
On the 26th.
On the 26th.
Your next regular meeting.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Or is it could go on a discussion item?
Yeah, well, I'm thinking the action item probably could be that we would have Roger draft us just a basic agreement outlining the surveying and get that moving forward, since that's really the first piece, and have that on our April 25th agenda for approval, and get you the same copy either for your April 26th meeting or your next meeting after that, just to get the ball rolling and knowing we can figure out value and everything else along the way.
I'd say that'd be pretty appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we'd also think about an exchange too, like you were.
Yeah, that's totally up to you if that's an option you want to pursue, but I think it's something we'd be open to.
Do you guys have something in mind already?
No.
I hadn't even thought about it.
No. Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe.
We'll take the courthouse after it's done.
Everybody wants to be in there after all the heavy lifting is done.
That's right. But we'll do the sidewalks though. we
Thanks.
already committed to that. Yeah.
I was thinking maybe another 1,000 feet of runway.
Now everything's going to that V, what do they call it, V? The vertical lift off. We don't need him on that.
Did you see that in 60 minutes?
Yes. Yes.
You guys want more land? Got more. I see that. What's that area to the back behind Ryerson's there to the east? What is that? On the other side of the street, the other side of the driveway.
Depression, isn't it?
Yeah,
You mean the east side of Public Works Drive?
Yeah.
That's a stormwater ponding area for the levee system.
We throw that in.
No, we can't. Sorry.
If they want, but.
We want a fishing hole in the spring.
We have those.
So staff knows what.
Yeah, you got another direction there.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, very good. It's been toward dinner time. We appreciate the attendance and open discussion. I would invite the supervisors to get in contact with us for the next time we should do this. So suggest a time and date and place.
Well, if we follow past procedure when we've had these, is one time it's on the city's location, and it's nice to be in the Coliseum in the brand new room and see this. We would make the invite for the next one to be either in the brand new boardroom when we open up the courthouse, or in our election center. We can show that off.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to wait for the next meeting 5 years from now when the courthouse is.
You all stop it.
I think it'll be done a little bit before that.
Because we have a list or God, my mind just went blank. What is the chart? The strategic plan, that these are every quarter. So we don't want to wait.
Well,
I guess I question, do we want to do this every quarter?
Yeah.
Or do we want to do
I would
this?
say twice a year would
Twice a
probably
year?
be appropriate. And if we get more than that.
Yeah, if we get more than that, we can always schedule it.
Exactly. But I think the important part, and I got to give a shout out to both Councilor Thompson and Lottie Hoff, that when I approached you guys on this last August, that you thought it was a good idea. And thank you for sticking to your guns and getting this through your strategic planning so we can have this again. it's important.
Well, thank you when I get the $3 million check.
You know,
And the check for the fireworks. You know.
There's times that all our, there's times that all our thoughts are on the same portion, and there's times when the city and county where those thoughts don't necessarily match up. And if they don't match up, we need to be able to discuss that and have explanations so there aren't misunderstandings. I thought this was a very good meeting. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing very much. I do have one quiet request. Next budget year, put aside a couple $1,000 for fireworks. They're going up 30%. All the county comes into Marshalltown, and as far as I know, we're the only town that does it anymore. And it's a pretty good deal. If you guys would just put a couple $1,000 toward your next budget. I know your budget's already done now. Give it some consideration.
We can take a peek at that. It might not be a bad idea if the entire county comes here, that you look to the other incorporated towns also.
Or we could just put Tupper's challenge out there that every person in an administrative seat, you know, write a check for 100.
He hit us up.
I have a pen.
Starts here, huh?
We already did all this.
Oh, you guys did?
Yeah.
Oh.
Tupper kind of, he pulled his gun.
He did.
He pulled the gun. Okay.
I'd like to assume that.
Yeah. I'm the only person here that has ever been to a city council.
Yeah.
People get money out of their pockets, Bill, like you.
I might imagine they were worried about.
So I'll come see you, the 3 of you tomorrow after your meeting.
I will say for the next one, if we hit 6 months, that's October. That's not a good month for elections, for us to be in the election center. And with what I know, I think this location would be great.
So we'll figure.
And the next one, then we can do.
We'll figure something.
Come to our house.
Yeah, yeah. This worked great. This is a great room.
Have you guys seen the rest of the courthouse?
Yes.
Rest of the
This is-
Coliseum?
this-
Good here.
I have to give a shout out to Al Booth. He was one of the 3 main people in doing the fundraiser for this. And then at the concert that we had out here with Jason Brown, he stood up, I can't remember how many $1,000, $5,000 or something.
So did you.
Incredible like that. Just, yeah, did write the check that night.
Jason too.
Okay, well, we're adjourned. Thanks again.
Thank you.
What's that, Phil? Good for meetings tomorrow. 8:45. No, I'm gonna come out.
Every time I see it.
Mr. Banky? Cool. Doing something what we talked about last week. I was thinking about it. So
No, I mean, right.
We've got a lot of little things. There's certain. Probably. I mean, that's me. Yeah. One of our shows. That's where. Thank you, Sal. You bet. Thank you. Yeah, so, yes, so I had some thoughts on some of the conversations. Okay. Cool. All right. Yeah.
Thank you.
You always ask me how she got along.
Well, it's good to see you.
And
it's so funny how like all the guys who are in that person's business, they're just they get shit and they're like going on every case they try to just blow up.
My job is
So he had so much things about that January.
That's a good strategy.
I was like, it's